Hi, I'm Colonel Douglas McGregor, the CEO of Our Country, Our Choice. And we're talking today to Dr. Juliet Engel, who leads Our Country, Our Children, a very important program in OCOC that's really caught up in this horrific crime fighting effort against crime against children, which is arguably the most horrific crime anybody can commit. Juliet has an extraordinary background, and I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit more, but she, in her time living in what was the Soviet Union and today Russia, saved tens of thousands of women and children from being trafficked. And in so many parts of the world, wherever there is poverty and there is also simultaneously great power enabled by wealth, you have this sort of criminality going on. And Juliet fought it very, very successfully. So now, Dr. Engel, Juliet Engel, how about telling us a little bit about yourself, your program?
You very little about myself, so I can tell you about the program. I grew up in an MK Ultra cult. So essentially, I was trafficked. I was sold by my father into this cult at the age of 6. I escaped at the age of 17 and forgot, which is pretty typical of MK Ultra survivors. You forget your childhood. You have no memory of your childhood. And went on to put myself through. I escaped, essentially. I escaped from my family. I escaped from the cult. I got myself accepted at the University of Washington, went to university, got a medical degree, became a radiologist, practiced in the Seattle area for about 20 years, and then was invited to Russia, where as one of the first American doctors through the Iron Curtain, and to make a very long story short, discovered that children in orphanages in Russia, this is just I was going in 1990, so it was just at the very end of the Soviet Union when everything was falling apart, and I think we're about 6 months to a year in this country from where they were in 1990, where the institutions fall, the criminality rises, the politicians seem to go insane, the laws make no sense, and the criminals are free basically to victimize the public. You're seeing that here now with the tremendous rise in the number of children being trafficked, because the first victims will be the children, and the perpetrators will often be the parents. And that's what we saw throughout the former Soviet Union. People who sold their children to trafficking rings or in exchange for drugs. And I don't think we're far from that. So what I did in Russia was to work with a tremendous, very courageous group of Russian, predominantly women, small groups from all over Russia, who banded together through a long process of getting to know each other, and created what we called the Angel Coalition. So it was a roof basically that covered the entire former Soviet Union, under which NGOs could work anonymously. And these were often like 2 or 3 person operations, and maybe they had a telephone. Maybe they lived in a village without electricity and no telephone. So, I mean, they were working under horrendous conditions, but just through sheer will and the love, basically, that we developed for one another as we became the angels, Angel 1, Angel 2, Angel 3. I mean, we used codes. We developed a tremendously efficient operation for working with local police, local educators, local media, local law enforcement, and local governments to create a coalition that effectively made huge changes in the way children were treated in Russia, the way police were trained in working with children. They were able to build shelters. The Russian government was actually very supportive. And we called that the Angel Coalition. And when I left Russia in 2010, it was working away. We had rescued, in the 10 years that I'd run the operation, we rescued over 70,000 women and children and men from labor trafficking. We have all of this documented. It's on our it's in the archive of the Our Country, Our Children website, if you want to look. Um,
If I could interrupt very briefly, just ask a couple of quick questions.
sure.
Is it fair to say that you're fairly unique, that not many people experience what you did as a child and survive?
Yes. Well, in one way, yes. I don't think most children do survive. I think within the MK Ultra structure, there are classes of children. I come from the bloodline class. My uncles, grandfather, great grandfather were all high up in the. We're all Shriners and OSS founders. My uncle founded the NSA. So these people put their children in, and they were expected to survive, but to become completely mind controlled. And I think you're seeing the results of that now because they're all over our government. So those people survived, but questionably not intact. But I think the vast majority were like children brought in from other countries that were just dumped in these used for satanic rituals, used for organ donors. Even at that time, they were performing rituals and then cannibalizing children. I mean, it was just nothing has changed. It's actually gotten worse. But I'd forgotten it. I'd forgotten it.
Another quick question in that connection. How much of what you were able to do in Russia have you been able to transfer to the United States?
Practically nothing. And this was a tremendous shock to me. I lived for 10 years straight in Russia because coming back just to visit my family, but I worked intensely on building and operating the Angel Coalition and getting it self-sufficient so that it could continue when inevitably I had to leave, which I did, because I was escorted out by Russian military intelligence because they felt that I was in danger from criminal gangs. I have no doubt that's true. But when I came back to the United States, I discovered that the situation in our country had gotten, as Russia had gotten better, we'd gotten infinitely worse. And all the data and information that I'd sent from Russia to the State Department, to the UN, to the Department of Justice about documented trafficking rings, bringing people from Central Asia and Russia, and Ukraine, very big in Ukraine, bringing them into the United States, and the huge number of children that were trafficked into America. Even the Trafficking in Persons office in Washington, D.C., who'd funded us to do the research that proved that the trafficking existed, refused to report on it. And they issue a yearly report called the Trafficking in Persons Report, where they basically say, we don't have that problem.
Well, in view of the federal government's decision to turn a blind eye effectively,
yes,
and I think we've also seen some evidence for that at the state and local levels, what are you doing that's going to make a difference right now inside the United States? I think that's what people watching really want to know, because you've got a lot of support and you've had a lot of people join with the purpose of supporting you. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, I've been really struggling to get to recreate what we, or the American version of what we did, what we had in Russia. And the key to all of that is that this needs to be done at a local level in small communities, and then operate under a roof that is very low cost, but it unites effort. So you're sharing information, sharing networks. One of the things we did in Russia was to collect data on from each area of the former Soviet Union to tell us where people were being trafficked, how they were being trafficked, what the routes were. It was amazing how much collection data you can collect, even just from getting people's opinions. Where do they think that things are happening? And so I've been going around the country. I've been speaking at conferences. I've collected a lot of supporters who want to help, but there's absolutely no support from law enforcement, from sheriffs, from trafficking task forces, state-sponsored, and from the federal government. And the Trafficking in Person Office now entirely supports only law enforcement militarization initiatives, which really do nothing in terms of child trafficking. So,
well, this opens the opportunity for me to mention this new Republic platform that we at Our Country, Our Choice have decided to partner with. And the Republic platform could well be the foundation for the building with the roof over it that you've described. Because if you can go on there and view anything, videos, information that's posted, regular news, as well as personal opinions, essays and videos, you do all that for free. But if you want to take action, you want to become an active proponent for ending child abduction, child trafficking, child abuse, then you've got to join the Republic platform, because that's your opportunity. There's so many opportunities for action on the platform. And I think that could at least be in the short term a critical answer to your problem. And then the question is, how do we raise awareness? How do we get people at every level, community, state, federal, to begin tracking human trafficking, especially child trafficking, trying to make sense of it, find out where it starts, who the people are bringing it in, how they take children and abuse them and misuse them, and no one seems to be able to find them afterwards. All of those things, that might work very well on Republic. In fact, I think it will.
Yes, we can operate the entire, well, first of all, instead of calling ourselves the Angel Coalition in America, we are now Our Country, Our Children. And our volunteers will be our angels. So the entire concept of building from the ground up can be done from inside the new social media platform, Republic. And I've never seen anything offered anywhere that allows just small groups and independent people to do this, and then to link up, starting at the very grassroots level. I don't care, 2-3 people. I'm going to teach the series of seminars on how you build your networks in your areas, and then how you link up with larger networks. It's going to be a lot of fun, really, because we're going to be doing something that's so positive. And eventually we will form a public information campaign in 2026 that will launch on July 4th, 2026, from coast to coast, where all organizations that are participating have been trained, are inside the Republic network, and are working together. We'll create a nationwide public information campaign. And all the influencers who are signing on to Republic by the hundreds will be publicizing this event. And it's going to be so large. We're going to collect so much information, and it will be such an eye-opener for people that aren't aware of child trafficking, that it will force local governments, national governments, state governments to act. And acting means forming grand juries and investigating actual trafficking cases. And then at that point, when you rescue children, you have another entire series of operations that you have to run. There have to be shelters, there have to be laws protecting the children, there have to be safe houses, there have to be any number of systems in place. A lot of those systems actually are in place. A lot of states have perfectly adequate trafficking task forces that aren't actually being used as trafficking task forces. So from the bottom up.
Well, perhaps the Republic platform will help you raise that awareness, because I hope that Republic becomes such a force, because it's a true free speech instrument, that it can't be ignored. And that seems to me to be exactly what we need for our country, our children. I can't conceive of any cause that could be more important than saving children from these horrific crimes that are happening as we speak today, all over our country and in too many parts of the world. Juliet, you're a terrific person, and you're a champion for everything that's good and decent in our society. And I thank you on behalf of Our Country, Our Choice for everything you and your team are doing. And I encourage everybody to go to the website for Our Country, Our Children, look carefully at what's happening, and get on to Republic so that you can be part of the fundamental movement for change, particularly in this area. Thanks so much, Juliet.
Yes, join us. Become our angels. And we're going to end this scourge of child trafficking.